or something. And if you really see, when you look at, and I've written various articles on the Me Too movement and stuff, and people who are cancelled are right back up on stage judging reality shows. So I think that there is not as much fear. I don't think cancel culture is fair, but I think that it is a lot less, in fact, factful than it used to be. The way it's kind of like a witch hunt in a sense.
Please introduce yourself. The gentleman in the fifth row. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dhaval. I'm visiting from the Silicon Valley on vacation. Directed to Santosh. So you painted this picture of a certain picture, right? That there'll be all this difficulty going forward. But if you break it up into two broad segments, one is social media and the one is AI. So I work in AI actually since last 7 years. Luckily, I studied under the father of AI, John McCarthy at Stanford. So AI also is trying to take care of all the stuff that is redundant in your life, right? Mind to focus on what you like to do. If you get a robot on doing all your mundane work that you do every day, right? If it saves you that time, it's giving you time back. And then that allows you to do whatever you want. So what's your perspective on that? And of course, Mani can share her perspective.
I think increasingly the question is going to be, the fact that this is a fantasy in some ways that technology is always good, right? Already we were supposed to have lots of spare time. This is already, if you go back in 1950 and say what will the world be like in 2025, all future imaginations, everything will be automated, and the fact is that we should have free time. What has happened is what, like Malini said, that if you do what you love, then you'll never have to work again. The problem is that you work all the time, right? So, but I'm just saying, so therefore, there is a long history of people believing this and this not happening. That is one. The other is that what is unmediated by technology? What parts of our life are unmediated by technology? More and more we find that even when we travel, we are more interested in what we are going to put on Instagram. Our travel planning is done through AI, right? So the fact of the matter is that the idea that we have this mysterious amount of stuff that we really want to do, right, which we will be able to do, to my mind, it is a myth. The other thing is that the very real problem is, where are we going to get the money? What is going to happen to employment? Right? It's not a question that we have an answer to that. We are talking about job losses that can happen at scale. So again, the question of saying that this idea of having that surplus time also means that we must have surplus means, and it's by no means clear as to what is the path to that. Nobody has an answer. Everybody has vague kind of thoughts that new kinds of jobs will emerge. But as of now, at scale, if you are going to robotize production, where are you going to get that kind of numbers of employment? How are you going to substitute those numbers? You don't have an answer to that. So I do think that of course it's possible to take a more positive view of AI. And there are enough people who argue that, and it may well be true. But as of now, there is no clear pathway.
I think just one thing that I add to that is I'm that Generation X because I'm born in 1977. So I know life before cell phone. I moved to Bombay with an alphanumeric pager, if you even know what that is. It was very cool in the day. But the idea that I have more, time, and I have so much access and ability now. But I wonder if I feel like I had more time then because I would make plans with a friend and I would go meet them, and there was no FOMO. How should I wait for a better plan, or is somebody else doing something better than me? And that whole comparison culture, I think, kind of stuff. If you don't, it's that ignorance is bliss. I miss that a little bit.
Yes.
So I Santosh Bhavan. The question is about how do you see it in the light of how capital and commerce is flowing into technology and all these things that you're talking about. So if you can put it under the lens of commerce and how capital is driving this, or is it the other way around? The society is leading and that is why capital is following, or it's the other way around?
I think clearly, we are getting the point where we are becoming primarily a consumer society. So if you would look at where the energy was, how you defined yourself. Let's look at how we define ourselves today. Earlier we defined ourselves by how we made money. Today we define ourselves by how we spend money. Fundamentally. Then that change happens. And to my mind, actually, when we talk about influencers, etc., what is an influencer? Influencer is a professional consumer. they are experts in consumption. They tell us how, and one of the biggest rising professions in the world is the profession of consumption. Because these are the experts in consumption. They make money telling people how they unwrap boxes and they make money. Right? So I'm just saying that's where is the push coming from? It is coming from capital, right? And so we are getting into that area, right? Where we are going to become more and more kind of, and where consumption becomes more and more defining of who we are. So, and I think that is like an AI, if you will look at it also, is big capital. So we have, in fact, and the craziest part is that all future development is now in the hand of the private sector. Right? This is no governments, by the time governments comprehend technology, technology moves on. So right now we are being led entirely by capital which has no idea what it is doing and how it is going to make the recoup the money. All of it is a giant crash. In a sense, they don't do it. They're going where the technology takes them. But what we do know, the internet promised freedom and democratization, and it was divided up into 4 people. 4 people have divided up the entire internet into and taken it over. So that's how the reality of the internet has been, and that's what we are seeing in AI even now.
I do love that the Louvre password is Louvre.
Ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My question is to Mr. Desai and of course to Malini ma'am also. I'm Rupashri. So I run a small company called Unicorn Author Lab and I help people to become authors there. I myself am an author. So my more than a question, this is a concern. I having people like you on board today. I would love to get it answered. So we are born in the era where the Hindus ran 3 pages of editorial, reading from there to big articles to now short post to shortest post to now the reels of less than 90 seconds. And our younger generation is consuming it so well. For them, it's like obsolete. Like if I talk about Hindu and the editorial, they have never seen that. I'm today accompanying my daughter who's a teenager. She just turned teenager. So how can we now, that is my purpose where I help young children to become authors, where I moving back them to articulate, express. So what is your take on that? How can we get them back to, again from 90-second reel to reading? Of course, reading parents are promoting, but I still feel it's not enough because the influencer, what you said is, we are under influence. And how can we get it back? I just want to know.
See, I think it's actually a complex question. It's not. I would not characterize it as simple that we had attention span which was larger and now it has shrunk and that's a problem. The truth is our attention spans have been shrinking for a long time. The average sentence, I don't remember the exact numbers. The English language average sentence, if you go back a few years, was I think 39 words. Today the average sentence became 26 words. Today it is shrinking further. And this has been happening through time. The average speech that politicians gave, it was very common to sit down through 3-hour speeches. Right? Impossible to think of that now. Right? So through time this has been happening. What has happened now is that there is an acceleration that has happened and it has become a mass kind of a phenomenon. But also what happens with this is that old forms of intelligence die but new forms of intelligence are born. So you have the ability to multitask. Now we do 3 things simultaneously. Right? We are watching television, we are on our phone, and we are eating something simultaneously. We never do one thing anymore, right? So now you may say that is divided attention, you may say that is new form of intelligence, right? So I do think, bottom line, I don't think we can go back. I don't think we can go back simply because while the internet also allows, for deep text. I mean, there are people who, in fact, studies have said that actual reading in terms of number of words has in many cases gone up rather than down. Because there is a lot of text material, which of course is getting squeezed out now. So I'm just saying it's a complex question. It is not a simple thing like, an old form of intelligence being replaced by a new form of shallowness alone, although that is happening. And I don't think it is possible to say how do we take them back. That ain't happening.
I think you also have to be creative. Like, for example, I built my whole career online. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that. But you can be creative about it. Like, I have a lot of friends who also study how to educate the new generation. And I think it's really interesting because they did a little exercise. So they said, okay, how do we teach, Gen Alpha and Beta about Gandhi? So they said, let's give them a challenge to create a social media campaign for the Gandhi March, for the Soul March. And what would that look like? And in that process, you actually can learn a lot. And I think it's incredible because if you see so many of my friends and their kids, that we always, our parents, every generation has said, I don't understand the next generation. How would they get by? They get by. And that's also the process of evolution.
Okay, we have to clear the auditorium at 9:15. So last two questions, the lady there,
Hi.
that can be followed up by the lady there. So ma'am, you can introduce yourself and ask.
Yes, hi, I'm Rutu. Santosh, this is a question for you. So I know this is a very dystopian future that you painted for us, and I just wanted to, and following directly from your question, Malini, on the generational aspect of it, right? Because I also do feel that social media is, it's very exciting for Gen Xers because it's new, but it is entirely different for the Gen Alphas or for that matter the Gen Zs. So I wanted to get your perspective on, what does it really mean when we talk about this? How does it change generationally? Because I'm a Gen Xer, I have kids who are Gen Zs and one Gen Z, one Gen Alpha, and I see a very different behavior of how they consume social media and how they act on it versus how my generation does. So I wanted your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think, say for my generation, where I think I just about squeeze into Gen X. I don't think I'm quite a baby boomer. So, but I think that the social media is always something external to you. Right? It is something that you put yourself on. It is it's like putting your photograph on an old photo album. Yeah, it's a separate act. You are separate, that is separate. You're putting in, something of yourself on it. There's always that distance. So whereas that is not the case. As you go down the generations, it is the air that you breathe, it is who you are, you're located in. So I find it fascinating, that we use the word offline. So the default is online. So it's almost like reality is the exception. Right? Online is the reality and offline. So you have to switch something off, in order to live. Right? So to my mind, that is really at a conceptual level. I think the difference is the difference is the fact that is pretty much, I think if you look at identity today also, I think, the younger generations are creating identity out of digital pixels. Every action on social media is a pixel in their identity. Right? That's the action, and pixel by pixel, and that responsibility so unlike an older generation which is born somebody, right? More and more younger generation is not born anymore. They become somebody through acts of digital consumption, of digital self-presentation. They become somebody. And that responsibility is an onerous responsibility. It is exciting, but it's terrifying. And I think that's what you're seeing. You see mental health issues that you're seeing that are cascading because of the fact that responsibility, and then you don't have any guide maps, there are no rule books. That is a world that you inhabit where you have to make yourself from scratch. And I think that's difficult as hell.
Last one for the day, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, this is Shafi and Santosh as well as Malini. And Santosh, I loved your book, Mother by a Lady. Hilarious that was. Okay, my question is, you come from an advertising background. Now the only advertisement that I'm forced to see is Spotify because I don't have a subscription of it. Okay, rest I skip everything. So from an advertisement point of view, do you think the charm of advertising is lost somewhere and people don't want to watch product because immediately influencers are selling us all the product, and we have hordes of direct to consumer brands coming up. So do you think that charm is lost? And to Malini, I wanted to ask